Hello and welcome to another session on web programming. So in today's session, we are going to take a look at the use of import and export statements with respect to modules in JavaScript. In my previous session, I was talking to you about my journey with React, and we have seen how to install React. Based on my investigations on React, what I've understood is we should have a complete understanding of JavaScript before stepping into React. So I have learned JavaScript. I have put up some lecture videos on JavaScript, and my lecture videos are available on codespindle.com. If you visit codespindle.com under the category programming, you select JavaScript, you will be able to find all my lecture videos. Not only that, in today's session, we are going to take a look at one more concept in JavaScript, that is import and export statements with respect to modules. So this session will be very helpful when we are trying to learn React in the coming days. So what is that we are going to see in this session is we are going to see how to export variables, export functions from within a module, how to import variables and import functions from other modules. We are going to see the difference between named exports and default exports too. So let's see how these things work. Let's go to the demonstration now. So in this session, we'll be taking a look at the use of import and export statements with respect to modules. So before even starting off with the demonstration, there is one important step that you should carry out if you want to avoid errors. So you go to the folder wherein you have installed React, and then you search for this file package.json, and inside this file you need to add the statement type module. So this is the first step and very important step, and if you missed out on this step, then your code is not going to work. You're going to get the error like you cannot use import statements outside a module. So that is the first step, and after including this step, we'll be looking at what is a module. So what is a module? That is the first question. A module is nothing but a file containing a group of similar functions. That's it. So you are just going to group code under these files. So you create many files and you're going to put similar functions under each file, and you call each file to be a module. So I have created two files. One is test.js. I've added test.js, and you can think of test.js to be one module containing a group of functions, and student.js is another module wherein it will also have its own set of functions. So I'm just going to use two files, and what is the concept here is I'm going to have some functions here. Say I can have a function like display. I'm just giving an example here. So I can have many functions like function test. It's actually a group of related functions or group of related classes inside a specific file, and these functions, classes or variables you can very well export from this file, and I'm going to import those functions and variables inside this file student.js. So what is import and export? Export is, say you have a set of functions or classes or variables inside a file, inside a module, which you will export, and that variables and functions that you're exporting can be imported in another modules or in another files. So here in student.js, I'll be importing the variables, classes and functions that we are exporting from another file. That's the concept, and this concept is very important, and we'll be using these concepts while we are working with React. So let's take a quick look at import and export statement step by step. The very first statement, the very first thing we're going to take a look at is we'll be looking at how to export variables from a module. So exporting variables, exporting functions, exporting classes, everything looks alike. Like you just need to use this keyword export. You can use this keyword before the declarations, or you can export functions, variables and classes after the declaration. So we'll take a look at how to export a single variable first from a module. Let's say I'm going to have this variable. Let's say first name is the variable, and I will just type my name here. First name is equal to Satish. So this variable is within this module test.js, and I need to export this. So how will I export this? You say export, and within parenthesis you give the variable name, first name. So this statement is very important. If you want to import this variable in some other file, then you should first export it, and you give export as the keyword, and within parenthesis you just say first name. So this kind of export is called as a named export. What is a named export? It is done within parenthesis. So you give that variable which you are exporting within parenthesis. So these are called named exports. So we have exported, it means that we are ready to export this particular variable, and we'll see how to import this variable in another module. So let me go to student.js, and what is that I'm going to perform here is import the first name variable, variable in this module. So how I can import that? For this I should use the statement import. So import, and in parenthesis I should be giving the variable I'm importing, first name, from which file, that is ./test.js file. So that is the import we are performing from test.js. What is the variable we are importing? First name. And let me just log this console.log, and let me log first name here. Let's see whether we have imported first name. So what should be printed to the console? The value Satish should be printed. Let's execute this file. You see the output is Satish. So we were able to export a variable first name, and we were able to retrieve that variable here by importing that in this file. I hope you were able to follow this. So the next thing is exporting multiple variables. Say I have hobby. What is the hobby of Satish? Hobby is teaching. So I'm going to export multiple variables now. Now I'll give first name, comma, hobby. That's it. And you can also have multiple variables, no harm. Say let address. Address is Vellore. And you want to export all the variables. It's first name, hobby, and address. Save this file. And if you're going to import all these variables, the thing that you're going to do is you're just going to import by giving a comma, first name, hobby, comma, address. So we are importing all the variables from test.js, and I can very well log them out like first name. I can concatenate hobby and address. So now I can run this file to check the output. The output will be Satish teaching and Vellore. You're able to see the output here. So this is how you execute the export of multiple variables from a file, and then you import multiple variables in another module. Quite simple, and I hope you're able to follow these simple concepts. Now let us take a look at the next concept. The next concept is, can I rename these variables while I'm exporting? Instead of exporting it as first name, I want to export it as faculty name. I can very well do that. I can say first name as faculty name. So I'm just giving a different name for the variables I'm exporting here. Hobby as say profession. Let me just change this address as say permanent address, something like that. So what I'm performing here is while I'm exporting, I'm just renaming those variables to a different name. So it is important while I'm importing, I should import say faculty name. I should import instead of hobby, profession, and instead of address I should be importing permanent address. And I can very well now print all these things, faculty name plus profession plus permanent address. So you're going to get the output here. The only thing is, while we were exporting those variables with a different name, and you see we have received the output Satish teaching and Vellore in our console. While we are exporting that with a different name. While we are importing, we can also rename while we are importing. Say let's just go back. Let's say we have first name, hobby as profession. We'll just export it as first name, hobby, and permanent address. First name, hobby, and address. Now while we are importing, we can rename. Say while we are importing, we can rename. What does that mean? We can import first name as faculty name. So this is also possible. While you're exporting, you renamed it. So now while you're importing, you're giving another name for the variables. Say hobby as profession, and we have address, ADD address as permanent address. So this thing, we are giving a different name to the variables while we are importing it, and that's what is happening here. And when I log the output, you'll get the output as Satish teaching and Vellore. So you see the code is running. So you learned many things now: importing a variable, importing multiple variables, importing variables with a different name. Likewise with exporting too, exporting a single variable, exporting multiple variables, and exporting variables with a different name. So the next question we have is, say if you're going to have a lot of variables to import from another module, then how is that you're going to handle this? So you're going to have a big import statement here. See, there is a way wherein we can import everything from another module using a star. So let's see that. So you can just import everything that is exported from a module by using import star as, and you can give an object name here. I'll call the object name as faculty from test.js. So now I can very well access all the variables or all the functions and classes that I'm exporting from this another module called test.js by just using this object name faculty, and then I have a dot, and then I can access the variable. So that easy it is. So it's a faculty is the object name dot address, then faculty is the object name dot hobby. See, whatever we are exporting from test.js, I'm able to access that in this file by just importing everything, and I'm just mapping that to an object called faculty. Now using this object, I'm able to access all the variables. The same way you can also access the functions that are being exported. So I hope you were able to follow all these things. So we have looked at many things with respect to exporting variables. Now we'll see the same with respect to exporting functions. The concepts are the same. And there's one more thing I just wanted to tell you before going into export of functions. See, here we are exporting after the declaration using export statement in a separate line. You can also export it like this. You can use it before the declaration, that is export first name. So you have to write export hobby, and before the declaration of the variables and the functions also you can use export like shown on the screen, and you're going to import them. Then the output is going to be the same. If I run this, you can very well see we're going to get the same output. So you can also use this export keyword before the declarations, or else you can use a separate line and use the parenthesis and export whatever variables you want to export. So now let us see how to export functions from within a module. How to export functions from within a module. So the concept is going to be the same. We're going to have a repeat of all these things with functions, and also when you're exporting classes, the same thing repeats. So let us take a look at how to export functions. So let me write a very simple function here, function display, and let me log console.log. Let me log hello world. So this is a very simple function, and if I want to export this function, I should give export in parenthesis display. So that's how I export a function. And if I need to import this function in my student.js module, what is that I have to do? I should just say I'll just give the comment as importing functions from another module. If I need to import function, what is that I should do is I should just use the import statement and give the function name. So it is import, and in parenthesis the function name is display from /test.js. So once when you have imported the function, you can very well call the function display. Let's see whether hello world is getting printed. Let's execute this. Yeah, you see hello world is getting printed. Likewise, you can also export multiple functions. How will you export multiple functions? Say I have another function, function test. You have function test, and then you have let me log. Okay, let me log console.log. Let me log my name in test function. Now if I am going to export two functions, then I should give display comma test. That's how you export two functions. And if you're importing two functions in this file, it's very simple. Just give display comma test, and then you can call these functions test. So you have now imported two functions, and when you run these functions, you'll be able to see the output in the console. Hello world and Satish is getting printed to the output. I hope you're able to follow this. The same concepts that we have used with variables will also repeat for functions. There's nothing new. If you're planning to import all the functions, you can very well perform that. But even before that, can we export it by renaming it as a different name, say display as disp. So I'm just calling exporting display as disp function, test as say disp name function. Say I'm just giving a different name while I'm exporting, like we did for variables. We can also import now disp function and here disp name function, and you should call the corresponding functions disp, and you should also call disp name. So disp name we are going to call, and let's see whether we're getting the output here, F5. So while we are exporting it as disp and disp name, and while we call disp and disp name after importing it, we're getting the output hello world and Satish. So what is that we have done here? While we are exporting, we are giving it a different alias or a different name, and you're importing that name. See, while you're importing also, we can rename it. Say I can rename it as display final, something like that, and disp name to be as display first name. So you have a lot of flexibility here. I can call display final, and display first name. So display first name. See, while I was exporting it, I exported it as disp and disp name. While I'm importing it with a different name. And if I execute this, I'm going to get the output as hello world and Satish. So you were able to get the concepts right. So it's just a repetition of what we did with variables. The same thing applies with functions too. And if you're importing all the functions from a particular file, what is that you can do is you can get rid of the parenthesis. You can say import star as say faculty. Faculty is the object from that specific module. Now you can call these functions directly. Say what are those functions? We are exporting it as disp and disp name. So I am importing all the functions, everything that is exported from that specific module test.js. So I can use the object faculty dot say disp. So this is the first function, and faculty dot I have to call the object dot and then the method name. And now if I run this, you'll be able to see I'll be getting the output as hello world and Satish. So that's how you export everything. You export, these are called named exports. As I've already told you, when you use parentheses and you just give the variables or functions or classes you're going to export, you call that named export. And you're importing everything here using a star, mapping that to an object, and then you need to use the object and the dot operator to call the specific method or the variables. So this is how you export functions. The same way you can also export classes. You can just say export class, and then it will be exported to the you can import that specific class to whichever file you want to import. The same thing applies for classes too. I'm not going to repeat that with classes. There's one concept called default export. We'll see this concept before we wind up the session. This concept is called default export. What is the use of default export? See, modules, when you create a module, it's like you create a module for a specific class. So there'll be just one file for one class. So that's how code will be actually designed. You're not going to put many classes within a module. So default export is you're just going to have one export statement. per module. You can't have multiple default export statements per module. So what is this default export? Say I'm not going to have, say I'm just going to have a module for this function. I'm just going to have one default export statement like this, that is export default and display. So what is that we are getting rid of is the parenthesis here. As a beginner, sometimes we may forget the parenthesis, and as I told you, modules, when you create a module, it may be for one specific class and you just need one default export statement. You can have multiple default export statements within a module. That is important, but you can have default export and named exports in combination together within a module, but you can't have multiple default export statements within a module. So once when you have a default export there, another advantage you get here is while you're importing, no need to give any parenthesis. So you can just say import display from test.js. So you are getting rid of the parenthesis, and that makes your life a little easy. So once when you imported this, you can call display and you can directly run this. Let's see whether we're getting the output. So yes, hello world, we are able to get that output here. So we have learned many things with respect to import export of data between modules. So we have used the export keyword for exporting variables and functions from within a module, and we have used the import keyword for importing variables and functions from another module. And we have also seen how to import everything from a module. We have seen the variations, and finally we have looked at what is default export and how it is different from named export. I hope you were able to follow the concepts. For the code related or for the code that's being used in this video, you can refer this specific site of mine, https://codespindle.com, and you can traverse to the category programming, and under that category you have JavaScript as one of the options. So you can go to JavaScript, and on the left hand side menu under import export title, you'll be able to find the code that we have used in this session. Please practice this code. If you have any questions, you can leave those questions as comments in the descriptions below. And that's it for now. Take care.